Live from the Batcave with Pat Brosnan. I have a very special guest, and we are on a mission to dissect, reconstruct, analyze, tear apart the material facts and a lot of innuendo and gossip and unsubstantiated, uncorroborated third-party hearsay and so forth regarding the events July 13th, 2024, when our great president was shot in the head. Yes, the ear is part of the head. So good morning. In the rarefied world of American intelligence, there are officers and then there are architects. John Franchi is one of the architects, a Harvard-trained Middle East scholar, a fluent Arabist, and a 29-year senior officer of the Central Intelligence Agency. He operated at the very top levels of the clandestine service, advising commanders, briefing ambassadors, and shaping United States strategy against some of the most complex threats on the planet. John's a thinker. John's a strategist, a quiet operator, and one of the agency's deeply respected station-level leaders. After retiring from government service, John brought that same intelligence and discipline into the private sector, guiding Fortune-level clients, law firms, and global corporations through a world now defined by cyber risk, geopolitical disorder, and non-state threats that move faster than governments can react. I was personally fortunate enough to work with John at my company, Brosnan Risk Consultants, and let me tell you, he is a rock star and was an invaluable resource for our global clients with strategic security, risk advisory, and unmatched global intelligence. And by the way, he's a super cool guy to boot, and that's a big deal. So this morning, inside the Batcave, we go behind the curtain, not into the classified lanes, but into the mindset, the decision-making, and the geopolitical clarity that only 29 years inside the CIA can produce. This is John Franchi, and this morning, inside the Batcave, we are going to rip the covers off two of the darkest questions in American security today, and it's surrounding the attempted murder of President Donald Trump on July 13, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania. The first question is the mysterious ninth round, and the second is Thomas Matthew Crooks, the invisible man. And question one, I'll begin with a quote from Congressman Clay Higgins in his official investigative report to Congress, and I quote, "Shot 9 hit Crooks's rifle stock, blew it apart, peppered Crooks with fragments, and likely saved President Trump's life." End quote. This is Congress, not gossip. John, have you ever heard of Butler SWAT Sergeant Aaron Zalapone?
Only, only in our conversations, Pat. Frankly, I mean, there wasn't much attention paid to that at all, and it only came out when the congressman made his statements and just prior to it. I mean, it wasn't really part of what I was tracking on the investigation, sadly.
Absolutely astonishing. And John, like the vast majority of Americans, myself included, until I became marginally obsessed with the facts and lack of material facts surrounding the, quote, story that has been generated by the federal government as it relates to what unfolded. And my investigation was very, very deep. I had conversations with leaders that were there, folks that were there, and several other factors that we'll get into. But the reality is 99.9% of Americans did not know of this sergeant, yet he saved President Trump's life and the lives of many others on the stage on July 13th, when the assassin, Thomas Matthew Crooks, the dietitian's aide, shot President Trump in the head after firing 8 rounds, and then the counter snipers killed him with 1 round 10 seconds later.
Right.
But the 9th round, fired from 100 yards out by this SWAT sergeant, Sergeant Zalapone, went completely unreported. A round that shattered an assassin's rifle, wounded the assassin's face and neck, and stopped the killing. Yet this monumentally important fact has vanished from the official federal narrative, like it never happened. We are going to tear into that, John. And the other question is the shooter himself, Thomas Matthew Crooks, the dietitian's aide at the nursing home. How did he become an invisible man? A ghost online, a ghost to the FBI, a ghost to every agency that's tasked with, signed to, protecting a former president. Even though we now know he left years of violent digital footprints, years of terrifying threats, years of screaming red flags that any competent system would have caught, must have caught, should have caught. Let's face it, Stevie Wonder would have spotted this clown. He was out there front and center. Well, we're done whispering it, John, because sitting across from me, ladies and gentlemen, in the Batcave is a man who understands the world behind the curtain, a Harvard-educated CIA leader who knows exactly how intelligence failures happen, and more importantly, how they're covered up. So, John, good morning. When a critical fact like the ninth round is omitted from the official narrative, what does that signal to you, John? Incompetence, suppression, or maybe conspiracy?
Well, Pat, first, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me here in the Batcave. I've been down to that lair for on numerous occasions, and I
Indeed.
love coming back. And it's great to see you and be with you again. So thank you for having me, and thank you for
My pleasure.
that great introduction. I'm gonna have to replay that for my wife repeatedly when I get in trouble. So no, but thank you for that.
Well, John, the difference this morning is we're having coffee instead of some great red wines, as we've had many times down here in the Batcave, and many more to come. But please,
it's five. It's 5 o'clock.
digress.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere,
Yes,
Pat.
indeed.
So the
Thousand
but to your
percent.
point, I mean, you raised some good points here, and I think there's when we look at this, what happened to President Trump and really the catastrophe around it, it shouldn't have happened. We know that. But it also raises some systematic problems that we see in the government. So in the case of not knowing about the ninth bullet, tells me it just shows it's indicative of how broken the system is and how uh, the incompetence that was really around the whole planning of this event from on the Secret Service side. And I say that and not with any malice intent. We need to learn from this and we need to improve ourselves. I have nothing but great respect for the Secret Service and everything they've done. Wonderful friends at Secret Service. I worked with them over my career, protecting presidents, heads of state, all kinds of folks, and a really top-notch group. The fact that this thing was a mess from the start, and I think the investigation proved that. And so the incompetence that the fact that this wasn't included in the information that we're just finding, well, not just finding about it now, but it's now becoming an issue that I think, thanks to you and others, are actually highlighting. It's really important for us to notice this. I mean, if it wasn't for the actions of that SWAT officer, that 10 seconds is a forever in a situation like that. I mean, that kid could have gotten off maybe another 10, 15 rounds at least. And then with the way the security perimeter was set up and the protection around the president or the candidate at the time, easily would have had 10 more opportunities or more to shoot him. And we knew that, he hit him in the face, on the head, on his ear. He was skilled to a point. So it's absolutely, incompetence was very, very clear.
I totally concur, John. So we left off, John, the mysterious ninth round. So Crooks fires 8. The president gets hit in the head, in his right ear. The fire chief is murdered, and 2 other civilians are seriously wounded. And then there's 10-second count. And this round that is fired, the ninth round, by, we learn much later, Sergeant Aaron Zappalone, it is so vastly unreported, so vastly neglected, ignored, excluded from all of the reports, all the narrative, all the press releases, and all the press conferences that detailed the extraordinary collapse of communications, coordination, and planning. I would say it's a biblical level collapse. It is what it is. I have many great friends in Secret Service, FBI, and all the police agencies. But the reality is, this was likely the largest collapse of security in modern history. That's how horrific it was. But let's put that aside for a minute. How could it be, John, that that round, which is so extraordinarily important, so unbelievably lucky and great by Sergeant Zalaponi,
Mhm.
that he was able to break the rifle so the assassin was not able to fire any of the 22 other rounds that he had in it? What do you make of that? How is he not getting medals every day on 60 Minutes and on T-shirts and on billboards? This guy is a massive hero. He saved multiple lives, including
Right.
our great president. John, I'm
Yeah.
lost. How'd
No,
this happen?
he deserves. I mean, he deserves all the attention that I mean that his action. I mean, you're to your point, Frank, Pat. He stopped this attack from happening. He's the reason why, and he gave the opportunity for the Secret Service team to be able to take the guy out. You know, a number of seconds later. Without that, we probably would have a whole different situation. If not, President Trump are being killed, multiple people being killed as a result of this, this man shooting. I think what it shows is the lack of. You were talking about the lack of communication, how the whole system around this, the whole security system around this collapsed on itself. I think that's why we're not seeing the attention that this gentleman deserves being paid to him. It's so indicative of what an absolute mess this entire operation was from the beginning till the end, essentially. It should never have happened. They should have had, the security perimeter was a mess. There was no communication on the ground. But for one thing, which is really near and dear to my heart, is intelligence sharing. There was almost no intelligence sharing at all. There was no respect or no response to the Trump campaign asking for more resources. And then, look, on a practical level, you have a president who's 6'4". I think he's about six foot
Yeah.
four, 6'5", and you have Secret Service agents around him who are like 5'8". But I mean, you have agents, again, who weren't. That's not the right agents to have around him, right? And you could see him when he was being walked off the stage. He was taller than everyone else. That's not how you protect somebody. And look, I'm not a Secret Service agent. I'm not going to, kind of go into all the details about that, but there's just some very, very clear things that point to me that all these things that you're raising right now just go to show the system around it collapsed. And thank God for Zalaponi and what he did, and that, call it luck, call it skill, call it divine inspiration, whatever it was, he was able to stop that from happening. And I think he will get the attention he deserves, and he will get the credit he deserves. And look, he gets the credit. I mean, look, nobody does this for credit. Nobody wants to be in that position. I mean, to to be able to have to save, the president in that regard. It should never have gotten that far. But thank God he was there to do what he did.
Thank God, indeed. I have to tell you, and John, having been in law enforcement for many years myself, in the greatest police department in the world, NYPD, New York's finest, aptly named,
Yeah.
and have conducted investigations for many years, both in that government service and then again privately at Brosnan Risk Consultants, working with you for a number of years as well. So I have a good understanding of how investigations should be conducted and how they are conducted. And I dug my teeth into this beginning on the 14th of July. I spoke to Congressman Higgins. I called him down to his office. I reached out to other leadership that were there in the field, that were there after Crooks was taken out of his misery. And the reality is that this is established, this ninth round established as a material fact, as we have now discussed a good bit, and excluded from the documents. Okay, we get it. President Trump turned his head, the equivalent, in my view, of pulling three royal straight flushes in a row and divine intervention on top of it, that he was not hit dead center in his head, like what Charlie Kirk was. Horrific by a cowardly sniper, a football field and a half away. Now, Building 6 and what happened at Building 6 and what didn't happen, and the collapse of planning and communication and coordination, as you said, no intelligence sharing. I actually have written and published a number of articles, including a detailed white paper that I believe I shared with you, John, that deconstructs and reconstructs minute by minute what happened on that horrible day. And I see it as seven deadly sins, no intelligence planning, as you reference, no coordination, no communication. The states weren't talking to the feds weren't talking to the local, no briefings, no planning documents. Um, it's unbelievable. And John, while at Brosnan, when you work with me on a lot of sensitive and high level matters, we lived for the war room. We lived for war gaming, strategic and tactical planning on our assignments, which were very significant and serious as well, but certainly not directly protecting the world's leader, President Trump. And we were so structured as a private enterprise that it blows me away when I look at the seven deadly sins. And another one of the sins was no drones. In fact, the only drone, ironically, was Thomas Matthew Crooks's drone, which he had in the air that day and prior days as he was doing his own recon and surveillance and intelligence gathering. John, how could the confluence of all of those failures, all of those massive oversights, omissions, failures, planning breakdowns have occurred on that one day without some other hand involved, some other conspiratorial, collusive, some other agenda that has not been developed? I have not been able to detect it personally, but my spidey sense, which has been honed in over 4 decades of conducting high-level investigations, has been ringing since late afternoon, July 13th. What do you make of it? Do you
Yeah,
smell a conspiracy, John? And I'm not a conspiracy type of guy. Let's be clear. It's
yeah,
just not my thing. But I'm also not a big believer in coincidences either.
right. I mean, I'm not a big conspiratorial guy either, right? I mean, usually when I see this operation and when I see what he did, when I see the whole system, and then reading, your white paper, reading the findings from the Senate committee, from the, and to the problems that were in and around the entire day, and the deficiencies at Secret Service and their response and the lack of coordination. To me, what I see is an absolute and utter failure of leadership to do its job and to really take matters seriously. And I think this is something that every single aspect, every problem that's raised in here shows there was nobody at the wheel. There was nobody driving this ship along, and they were just going along for the ride. And then, but as luck for this guy, he was able to take advantage of all these kind of opportunities, if you want to call it, to be able to do what he did and fit himself into the gaps. And again, thank God for people like Zalaponi. They were very aware, state and local police officials that were, getting messages out, but weren't being responded to by Secret Service. The fact that the director of the Secret Service resigned immediately as a result of this tells me that they also recognized the utter failure that their leadership had in moving this thing forward and with the officers. And I think this is something you're going to see more of in government. Hopefully not to this level, but the lack of leadership, but also the lack of qualified people. So many people are leaving government or have left government. So many experienced people, and you have a lot of new people coming in. And do you have leaders that can be in there to be able to make sure that they're not only trained, but they know how to respond? Because this isn't just about training. This is about responding properly and be under fire. As you've been under fire before as well as a police officer, I've been in war zones as well. It's about reacting properly when you have all of that pressure on you and you don't have 10 seconds. You don't have 1 second to react properly. And systematically, these failures took place because everybody reacted improperly to what was going on. And from the especially in the preparation piece, I think there was also assumptions that things had taken place that didn't take place. And that's a problem. That's again a leadership problem. You need strong leaders in there to make sure that these things don't happen, that the right things happen and when they're supposed to. So
My most vigorous efforts in terms of tearing through all the material facts that were known, uh, speaking to eye and ear witnesses, um, really going into all the corners, shining a light in every corner, flipping over stones in every corner relating to this shooting on July 13th of the president. And I have not been able to establish a thread or even a scintilla of evidence that supports any collusive element or any conspiratorial element. I'm not convinced that it's not there. I just not have been able to unearth it at this time. But like Inspector Javert from Les Mis, I'm not going to stop. And the fact is, as someone who was responsible for the security for almost 3 years of the greatest mayor in New York City's history, Rudy Giuliani, I can tell you that when myself and my partners, particularly John Fleming, I like to say he's not my oldest partner, he's my longest suffering partner. But myself and John and Jimmy Crow and Jerry Linane and a bunch of guys that you have met while working with us at Brosnan, we had a very serious responsibility. Rudy had put away a lot of bad guys, a lot of organized crime guys. He had a lot of enemies, both as the former U.S. Attorney in the Southern District, as well as number three at DOJ, and now as the mayor. So we took it extremely serious, and we kept them safe. And it was a great collaborative effort by the guys and gals that were on his team. But I get a nagging sense when I view the videos, when I see, as you referenced, to the height of the personnel that was surrounding him on the stage, overall presence, some fumbling with weapons, post-shooting. I I have a hard time not believing that Biden and his administration assigned a B team from the Secret Service uh, to Donald Trump when he was in between presidencies as a former president. Do you get that general sense as well? It's been nagging me for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, the fact that we're even talking about the Secret Service having a B team is a problem, right?
Right,
There should
right,
be no B
right.
teams anywhere,
Perfect.
but especially in
Yes.
Secret Service. And I think there's two things I think a lot of this is bringing up to me. One is that we've allowed ourselves to have B teams, right? Look, you can get into the whole woke conversation about making sure
Yep.
everybody has the right to be whatever they want to be in whatever position they want to be. You have to have certain criteria for these positions. People have to meet certain levels. There was a interview with Kash Patel recently. I think it was one of the senators or congressmen asked about doing pull-ups or something. And that do we really have to make sure that female officers, or female agents for the FBI can do these pull-ups? Yes, they have to. They have to be able to run a mile. They have to fit certain criteria to do their jobs. I mean, you would love it to be that anybody could do any job, but you don't want me like being, I'm 5'9", and I'm not going to say my weight in public, right? But it's so you don't want a guy like me being protecting the president because I'm not well suited for that, right? I don't fit the right criteria. You have to have these standards, and I think what's come out, and it came out in the campaign, and I think you're starting to see it be implemented, is we got away from these standards. So the fact that you're even saying like there was maybe a B team for Secret Service, to me, that's just unacceptable, and that's something that the Secret Service needs to address to make sure that regardless of what agent's chosen for whatever duty, that is the best agent. That agent is trained there at a standard that is not only acceptable, but it's exceptional for what it is they need to do. Their job is to keep the most important people on the planet alive, safe, so that they can, present, have their negotiations or whatever it is to be able to do in government. So that to me is telling. Was it a B team? Was it, that was put in place? I think they came to some realization too that, this was a can't, they had certain levels. I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember this from somewhere about how you have certain protection for candidates, and you have certain protection for presidents, and you have certain protection for active presidents. To me, I think this is all going to change as well as a result of what's happening here. And it's totally unacceptable that it was allowed to happen. But we fall into things in government of, well, that's the rule, and we're going to go by the rule, and then we're just going to kind of move forward with it. So, to me, that was the that's one of the more major problems that we in government have to deal with. Or I was a former government guy, hoping that that the new folks are dealing with this to make sure these standards are just not even gold level, platinum plus, rare earth mineral like level, the kind of standards, and we don't have exceptions because whatever. Sorry, you can't have an exception when it comes to Secret Service and protection. You can't. I mean, a sniper has to be able to do a certain thing. He can't hit, 8 out of 10. He has to hit 10 out of 10 every single
Right.
time, right? That's just the way it goes. So,
Absolutely. John, I couldn't agree more. You nailed it. There should only be the A team. There should only be the A plus team. There should be different strings of the A plus team, like going out on the ice, right? First string, second string, but they all have to be A plus. I mean, we could probably stay here for 10 hours and discussing how woke ideologies and DEI programs and so forth infected and polluted the thinking, mindset, practice, protocol, policies, right, of the Secret Service and other federal agencies during the Biden administration and other administrations. But thank God the ship has been righted with the great President Trump, Santa Trump, as I like to say, comes down the chimney a couple of times a day with the coolest toys, the newest toys, the shiniest toys, and they're all wrapped, guess what, in executive orders. Absolutely love it. And I can't get over what he's doing with the Mexican cartels. But John, that's for another day. Let's pivot to Thomas Matthew Crooks.
yeah.
Okay, I keep referencing him, and I can't stop because it's so critical to trying to fathom, to trying to even remotely understand how he accomplished what he did accomplish. This is a 19-year-old, unremarkable in every way, nursing home dietitian's aide, an assistant at a nursing home. This child magically and allegedly, defeated the combined intelligence, expertise, planning, coordination of all the cops and all the feds that day. Along the way, he magically learned how to build a remote bomb. I got to tell you, I'm pretty handy. I work on motorcycles, as you know. I'm a two-wheeled enthusiast. Uh, I don't know how to build a remote bomb. I just don't. I mean, how he learned it and how he was on these different platforms in different countries, and all the new data that was uncovered yesterday in the New York Post in a fantastic piece of investigative reporting by another female Inspector Javert, Miranda Devine, was absolutely mind-blowing. Uh, the screaming red flags, the extraordinary, vicious, and divisive and incendiary comments, threats that he had made on numerous occasions on various social media platforms for many years. No one caught it. Ray Charles, Helen Keller, Stevie Wonder, the whole gang were watching and reading it, and no one got it. Are you aware, John, and I'm sure you are, but this continues to boggle my mind, that when Thomas Matthew Crooks, when he circumvented the magnetometers and the security screening area at the western side of the park, he went around them to outside the frozen zone. He went around the magnetometers, and do you know that he parked his car with the explosives, the weapons, a bulletproof vest, a spotting scope, extra rounds. He parked his car next to the SWAT team members' personal vehicles outside Building 6. He parked in a police parking area.
Incredible. Incredible.
The mind reels from it. I mean, honestly, I had to read that one 3 or 4 times. How? Please, how could that happen?
I think it's. I mean, I keep going back to the incompetence or the lack of planning or the lack of attention to detail that took place in this operation, and I think that's it. All of those cars should have been looked at. Everybody anywhere near that site should have been checked. And it wasn't. I mean, it absolutely wasn't. Your reference to Miranda's recent investigation to me brings up a bigger point, which is we have to start taking a much more activist role in what people are doing online. because that's where all this is happening. And I think this we're going to see more and more of this happening every day. Pat, the fact that there's one mass shooting on average a day in the United States and not more is being yelled out the window about this, to me, is a crime. I get so many people asking me, when do you expect the next 9/11? What all of these, are you worried about another 9/11? I'm like, we're living in another 9/11. It's happening every single day, right? You don't have to have, we respond as a country usually really well to big events like this. But in the case of these attacks on a daily basis, the cyber attacks that are happening on a daily basis, they become white noise to us. So when you have, I'm not even going to say this kid's name because I don't think he deserves the attention that people are giving him. But when he did what he did, and now all of this is coming out about how active he was online, we have to ask ourselves, should we take a much more active role in monitoring what's going on online in these sites and then following up on it? Because when you talk to police's hands are tied because if a crime isn't committed, they can't really go after them. And so going on these sites, looking up things, he looked up the Oklahoma bombing, the Pulse nightclub bombing, how to use an AR-15 and how to shoot really quickly, how to make a fertilizer bomb, how to make Molotov cocktails, right? Looked up the Kennedy assassination. He researched the venues that President Trump visits, I was planning to visit, checked his schedule, all of those things. We have all these wonderful AI tools that everyone likes to talk about, right? Use these tools to be able to track these kinds of things and be able to follow up on it and untie police hands to be able to investigate these things, because this is where the attacks are coming from. It's going to be these lone wolves who are influenced. It could be nation states. It could be these really just vile, nihilistic groups that are out there just encouraging young people to do horrific things to themselves and others. That's a new trend that police are tracking. These are horrific things that we've never as a country or people have ever had to deal with. And it's all done in these anonymous kind of world online, and nobody's willing to touch it because rights to privacy and rights to this. Look, I'm all for rights to privacy, constitutional rights, all that kind of stuff. I get it. And I've lived in countries where they don't have that, and we never want to go down that road. But there has to be a line to say, look, what the things that this kid's looking up, or this person's looking up, or these people are looking up, this is dangerous. This is going to, they're either planning something or they're trying to influence some others. We need to, as a country, as an agency, as a department, whatever, get more involved in this. And we need to also empower local police to be able to be more informed on this. So many local police
Absolutely.
don't have the intelligence resources, they don't have the training, they don't have the facilities to be able to do what it is they need to do. Fusion centers help, police have fusion centers in different states, and those help. But we really need to get more active there. We need to have it's a hard conversation we have to have as a country, but we're at a really hard place because our society is crumbling from within because of influences from outside that have been able to take advantage of the freedoms that we give everybody. And so again, we can keep those freedoms in place, but we can also keep our people safe. And it's President Trump, but also our kids in schools, our families, our businesses, just our organizations, our community. So sorry, got me on my pedestal there, Pat. But it's a problem that
Oh,
I
John,
think
you
we
nailed
need to
it.
talk about this. So
You absolutely nailed it. And amen to that. Intelligence is the lifeblood. Intelligence gathering is so critical. Vast importance of intelligence gathering, and the importance of see something, say something. That is not just a metaphor or a mantra. It's absolutely critical. And we saw it. We have seen a number of times, and just in recent weeks, John, uh, the great members of law enforcement were able to thwart and prevent another mass shooting. They're one a day. They're hard to keep track of. Where someone at a range identified some individuals, I believe they were Middle Eastern, and they were practicing how to reload an AR with the speed loading uh, mags on an AR weapon at the range. And they thought that was, whoever saw it, thought it, or maybe perhaps it was the owner, thought that was very unusual. And they did the right thing. They made a call, and a nightmarish plot was foiled just by that piece of intel. And when you think back to 9/11 and the fact that an operator of a piloting school in Florida allowed Muhammad Atta and his co-conspirators
Mhm.
to learn on their direction only to fly straight. They didn't want any training at all on how to take off a plane from the ground or how to land a plane. To me, that's a clue. That's a massive 5,000-pound clue. And those individuals from the pilot school, I've always felt, should have been dragged into a federal grand jury, with the operating questioning being what you knew then, what you know now, and what you were negligent in not knowing. And that is, to me, an indictable offense. When you allow such an overwhelmingly obvious and threatening scenario to unfold on your watch, where you could have intervened and picked up the phone, is a criminal act in my mind. And it goes on an awful lot. I mean, but you know, John, and we have discussed this many times when we were back at Brosnan. Even you go back to the Tsarnaev brothers, those two clowns up in Boston Marathon, uh, the fighter and the brother who failed 7 subjects in college. But they were under surveillance for multiple months, many, many months. And I guess budgetary constraints, other overarching initiatives that may have come up, and an inability for law enforcement to ever know what the operational day is, right? You never know. So there's the fallacy of sustained surveillance. So you keep them under surveillance for how long? For the rest of their natural life? If they wait 10 years to pull the trigger, metaphorically and realistically, that has always been a problem. But I really believe that what you stated on the prior is the linchpin and the operating methodology that would really work, where local law enforcement has the ability, the tools, the resources, and the training to mine the social media platforms and identify when individuals like Thomas Matthew Crooks are pounding out incendiary, threatening, violent, terroristic threats. And there has to be an investigation and there has to be intervention. The gathering of intelligence is absolutely vital, super vital to keeping this country safe. Your thoughts,
No,
John?
it's good. Yeah, no, it's good collecting intelligence, but also knowing when to act on the intelligence. I mean, that's always a struggle, like whether you're at the agency or anywhere, is you collect intel, how much intel is enough intel, and then what is intel good for? Intel's good because it should inform action, and it should inform that. And so, to your point, I mean, giving the tools, or maybe building a centralized tool base to allow for there's so many great AI tools that are coming out. There's so many capabilities that are out there. I see them now, and they're not just limited to the U.S. government. The private sector is coming out with so many of these different things that can synthesize this kind of information and give us a starting point of where to look for a lot of these problems before they amount to something. And then to your earlier point, one of the great maxims I learned at the agency, a former boss, I don't know if he's going to be listening, but he told me, he's like, never forget, we are they. He would always say this to us, because people always say, well, they'll take care of it. They'll take care of it. Somebody, and it's just
Great
like,
line.
no, we are they, right? And we're,
Yeah.
so if you feel that something needs to be done, you need to voice it up. And I think that goes to the see something, say something thing. And in this case too, if you're starting to see things that are weird, voicing them up and letting police be able to respond to it, and ensuring police have the authorities to do what they need to do. I think there's a number of things that have to be kind of reoriented here, culturally as well as legally and on the judiciary and whatnot, to be able to allow these things to happen. But this problem is not going away. This is going to get worse, and the bad guys, whether they're terrorist groups or they're the Russians or Chinese or the nation states, or just could be some guy stuck in his mother's basement, can leverage all of these things. The tools are available on the dark web. The fact that these things are still available and that we can't take a more active role in preventing them, to me, is troubling. And it's compounding on itself. So
John, um, I have to say that it's great to be on this side of law enforcement at this time in 2025, because the science and the technology have finally caught up to the bad guys, like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. The science is there. For example, there's counter drone science today, and I'm deeply knowledgeable. I'm involved in counter drone technology company, the largest one in America. That technology has the capability to identify for example, in sniper detection, the shooter, Tyler Robinson of Charlie Kirk, back on September 10th, would have been identified 100%. The shooter of President Trump would have been identified. Counter drone technology, AI powered detection technology, and the science behind it is mind blowing. It's there. We have to leverage it. We have to use it. We have to become conversant and knowledgeable about this technology and implement it, because above the roof line and in the danger zones, 500 yards out from any public speech, is very, very dangerous area. The police cannot do everything. Binoculars, telescopes. We need to leverage the force multiplier of the great counter drone technology that's out there that will identify these assassins who are hiding in faraway spots with powerful rifles and skills to put a bullet in the head of certain people. And it's terrifying. But thank God the technology is there. You know, John, last 10 seconds is yours, my friend. What are we going to do here? What can we do?
Pat,
See
I think
something, say something, scream it. 30
yeah,
seconds, my friend.
just be active. I mean, be aware and know that we all have a role in this. I mean, it's not them. Again, we are they. I think is a really
Yep.
important thing to think and to remember, because it's gonna keep your family safe. The fight's here now. It's here on a daily basis, and we have to recognize that, and we have to be active in addressing it.
I love that line, John. We are they. I tell folks constantly, pull your face out of your phone, gather situational awareness, grow eyes not just in the back of your head, but in the sides of your head, and pay attention to your surroundings. And if something is out of sorts, if something appears inappropriate or possibly criminal, notify the authorities. We are they is a powerful line, and you're going to be hearing it. That's a new Patism, John. Thank you again. This was absolutely amazing. Really appreciate it. My hat's off to you. And folks, Pat Brosnan live from the Batcave, wrapping it up with the CIA legend and none other than my great friend John Franchi.